What's up? Welcome in. Good morning.
Yeah.
As Boston has entered the chat, the show where we take what you guys are blowing up your group chats about and bring them right here every morning into the conversation.
Yes.
George Balekji, Travis Thomas T. How are we doing this morning?
I'm doing good, man. You know, we have a great show for you. Of course, we're talking Sox. We're talking everything in sports. But most importantly, George, no Cardi B and Stephon Diggs news.
Don't.
What?
You're speaking a little too soon.
Okay, knock on wood.
Thank you.
No Jordan Hudson, Bill Belichick news.
All right.
Knock on wood.
2 for 2.
Right? It's just a straight sports show today. Thank you.
We're excited for this one. Hey, pregame squabble leading to a walk-off over the Angels. We'll be taking a look back on what happened between the Angels and Sox before the game.
Yep.
That's Ceddanne Rafaela's unique walk-off home run. Deven Marrero will join the show to talk that as well. USA versus the world. The NBA taking a page out of the NHL's book. We'll talk all of that as well. And we have a special guest, Doug Kyed, stopping by the show to share a very powerful movement he's doing and fundraising as well to beat leukemia. So let's get to what's trending. Let's get to what you guys are talking about in your group chats. Let's start with this. Red Sox walk-off home run win. Woo! Final score, 11-9, beating the Angels. One of the worst pitched games I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Someone had to win. And the Red Sox avoid getting swept by Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Ceddanne Rafaela with one of the most unique walk-off home runs you'll ever see because it just snuck by pesky pole.
Yeah.
1-of-1 home run in a 1-of-1 ballpark. Squeaks in.
I was
Red
so
Sox get the
confused.
win.
I was so confused watching this.
When that dropped, I was like, that's fair. That's fair. I was like, I think it passed the pole.
You were faster than me because I was lost as hell. Wait, what? Why are they celebrating? That was a home run. Like, it was such a late, delayed reaction, which is kind of fitting for this team, no? Like, everything with this team has been bizarro world and just, we don't know what's going on. One day you're great, the next day you stink. You're on this emotional roller coaster. And this felt fitting to me, George, the way this game ended. Confusing. What just happened? Oh, wait, we won. Jubilation. That's how the season has felt.
This is a game where both the Angels and Red Sox combined for 24 hits, 20 runs, 10 walks.
Yeah.
Lucas Giolito, we saw, just went 1 2/3. But this is where the Red Sox, this is the one thing you can't knock them for. They're not getting blown out. With all the struggles they've had, they're always in every game. That's why you have so many one-run losses.
Yes.
They rallied to go up 5-4 in the first inning, tied the game at 7 in the fourth, tied it at 8 in the seventh, tied it at 9 in the eighth. And then we see Ceddanne Rafaela right there with that walk-off 2-run shot. This is a team that fights. You just want to see them put it consistent, and you want to see the fundamentals of baseball.
You said the word, fight.
Yeah.
And we'll get into what happened pregame too, right? But this team's not going to quit. They're not going to lay down. They are going to fight. Alex Cora said as much, and it's true. I mean, here's the thing. We all have to be a little bit better here, and I understand the emotion. It's been a tough season. We sit up here every morning and we talk about the disappointment we feel around this baseball team this season for underachieving. We all can agree with that with the talent they have. But a win is a win is a win in any league, okay? Major League Baseball included. And to win that way, I understand it feels a little anticlimactic because it's like, wait, what just happened? Oh, but in the end,
I'll take the win.
They
needed it.
We all, myself included, have to be better be happy with the damn win. I saw so much misery and just like, oh, whoop-de-doo, the Sox win in the worst way possible. What's wrong with you people? It is June. There's still time. The season's not over, despite what many of you think.
Yeah.
Take this win, go to New York, and let's see what happens. What if they take 2 out of 3 from the Yankees? Now we're talking. I'm not even going to bring up the S word, and not a bad word, sweep. Let's not go there. But what if they look good against the Yanks?
Yeah.
So let's just relax, take the win.
And you saw the fans on Twitter. I mean, some going, hopefully this is the spark, other ones showing jubilation, excitement. You see that right there from Zobrist. Please let this be a spark going forward.
Right.
From Ceddanne Rafaela, enjoyer. Again, that's not my burner, I promise. Banger, he's saying to the Red Sox. This is my favorite of them all. That Rafi Devers reaction photo, the meme, whatever you want to call it. Just the shock.
Yeah,
they won a
dude.
game. They avoided the sweep. Max Fried pitches for the Yankees Friday night.
Tonight.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Red Sox avoid him. Garrett Crochet on the bump in game 2.
Right.
Things fall their way. We'll see if Hunter Dobbins can bounce back in game 1. Let's now get to the NHL. So the Bruins are the final team in the NHL remaining without a head coach, as Dan Muse was hired to lead the Pittsburgh Penguins. You see the tweet right there from the Penguins themselves with the photo of Dan Muse. So the Bruins are reportedly down to Marco Sturm, who is the head coach for AHL's Ontario Reign, or Mitch Love, Washington Capitals assistant. Both those guys are not coaching right now. Obviously, Stanley Cup Finals, Edmonton, Florida. Two good candidates. The Bruins taking their time. And I wonder, too, with Dallas eliminated, if they're kicking the tires on some more candidates. Not necessarily DeBoer, but Misha Donskov, who is one of the top assistants in Dallas and has a lot of coaching experience.
I don't know, George. I'm at the point now where we've talked this so much, and it's so late into the game that I need someone who's in the know to slow this down for me and explain it like a kindergartner. Because I'm looking around, all these teams get coaches, and now the Bruins are the only team left standing without one, and I'm thinking, is that an advantage?
Yeah.
Or are we at a disadvantage? Like, what are we doing? I have nothing left on this topic. I don't know what to do or say. I'm at the point now, tell me who it's going to be so we can talk about this new coach and what they want to do and their history and what they want to implement and how it fits. I am lost now when it comes to the Bruins head coach because there's nothing there. What are we doing? You and I talked last week, I want to say it was Thursday, Friday, around this time last week, and we say, hey, Monday, it's probably going to be an announcement at the latest Tuesday. Bro, the week's damn near over.
I know.
Like, what? I'm so confused.
The draft is 3 weeks away. You need to get with the front office. I know the Bruins have in mind what they want to do with the 7th overall pick. Like, they've been planning this all along.
But who's coaching?
Exactly. The coach has to be on the same page with the front office. Personnel, the approach, everything on the plan. You have just over 3 weeks until the NHL draft. You have a 7th overall pick. You have a bevy of picks, finally. You have a young core now. You rebuilt at the deadline this past NHL season. There needs to be decisiveness, and there needs to be a head coach. We saw the reports early this week. An announcement is expected. We saw the reports coming out. It's now Thursday.
Yeah, I don't think it's coming.
It's no longer early in the week. It's later in the week.
I don't think it's coming.
We'll get a Friday announcement. We'll see. I don't know. I really don't know. But this is a part where the Bruins are down to the last NHL team without a head coach. We know who the reported leaders are. Mitch Love, Marco Sturm. Sturm, a former player for the Bees.
But what's the holdup? That's what I'm saying. I need somebody
I think it's Dallas, Misha Donskov, being able to interview him, and possibly DeBoer getting the boot in Dallas, too, because the players, he was a good coach for 5-6 years, but ran his course in a way with that dressing room.
So it's due diligence,
Yeah.
Is your answer, essentially. But again, these other teams did due diligence.
Yeah.
They have head coaches. You with me? That's where I'm like, there's a disconnect somewhere, and I can't figure it out anymore.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, announcement sooner rather than later at
Hopefully.
this point. Can't be any later than 3 weeks out from the draft. All right, so Adam Silver announced an adaptation for the All-Star game. You ready for this one?
Yes.
Team USA versus the world.
Oh.
2026 All-Star game. Quote from Adam Silver. He announced it on FS1. I'm not exactly sure what the format will be yet. I paid a lot of attention to what the NHL did, which was a huge success. Him, of course, talking about four nations. The atmosphere those games were played. It was playoff hockey. The world was watching. It was excitement. And you saw the superstars of the NHL all buy into play. Here's from Ian Jacobs. It's not that it's a bad idea. It just takes buy-in from the players. Four nations worked for the NHL because the players chose to care about
Facts.
it. Would love to be proven wrong, but I don't see the NBA players caring enough to make it even close to what the NHL Four Nations was. I think that's a good point. Here's one from Joey F, a.k.a. Bean. Joey F, baby. This isn't going to work for the NBA. It works for hockey because they included multiple nations in a tournament that lasted a week. Seeing Buddy Hield and DeAndre Ayton in the All-Star game doesn't intrigue me.
Why do you use those two, though?
Ayton won't be there. Buddy Hield could be. This is a great idea. Last one. America doesn't want that. They'll get destroyed. Okay. This is where it makes it interesting.
He's right.
We can see Jokic, Wemby, Giannis,
You could stop
SGA,
there. You could stop there.
Luka
You could stop
as a
there.
starting five.
Yes.
Sengun off the bench. Maybe Lou Dort gets voted in.
Your
if
starting
Canada
five
does
was
their
good
thing.
enough.
And this would be a Team USA with a big that make it dominant. Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis, if he's healthy, like Kevin Durant on off the bench, right? LeBron's starting. There's no way this happens and he comes off the bench, which he should at this point in his career. Great idea. I am interested, though, when you take it as USA versus the world. And what makes the four nations great is their respective countries. We've seen it in the Olympics, and USA ran through it. The world has real potential to beat USA. Look at all the MVP winners that we've had.
Has real potential.
Giannis, SGA, Jokic. Then you throw in a Wemby who should be healthy, and Luka.
What are you talking about?
You think the world destroys USA?
Yes. What are you talking about? The world
that-
has a real chance.
and that would
the
get
world's
buy-in.
gonna beat our arse.
And that would get the buy-in, though. So that's where I disagree with those, where they've gotten their butt beat on the Olympic stage, the world stage, all these years.
Yeah.
World's coming together of like, let's shut these mother effers up.
Yes.
And for USA, they know it's a real threat.
Well, you're talking about two different things. This ain't the Olympics. In the Olympics, it's different. You represent your country. That there is buy-in, so to speak, right? So Team USA is going to go out there and get it done because we're USA. Enough said. But in an all-star game, these guys don't care anyways. So to your point, the world dudes care, and they're going to be like, this is our chance to whoop up on the U.S., and that's exactly what they're going to do. This ain't going to work. The all-star game doesn't work in the NBA, period, no matter how you spin it.
What I would like, it's difficult to make it work, though, because the mid-season tournament ties in with the team schedules.
Yes.
But drop that. Find a way to make a mid-season tournament of this, USA versus the world. Best of 5.
I don't hate it.
Best of 5.
I don't hate it.
That builds up a rivalry.
We're still going to lose.
Yeah, we'll go over rosters later on in the show, who we think will get it. We'll take a quick break. On Boston is entered the chat. But when we're back, Deven Marrero will be joining the show, talking Sox, some squabble.
Yep.
We'll take a look at their series up against the Yankees. Get the latest as well. Up-to-date live Boston sports headlines, along with your daily dose of trending sports and social topics every weekday on Boston has entered the chat. Catch us live at 8 a.m. on NESN, 9 a.m. on NESN Nation. That's every Monday through Friday, right here on NESN and NESN Nation. Boston has entered the chat. We're back here on Boston has entered the chat. Let's get into it. Red Sox with a win they needed. The whole city, the whole town, the whole region needed. 11-9 walk-off win against the Angels. Have a day off, then taking on the Yankees in the Bronx. Big series, not just for the division rivalry, but for them to make something good happen. So let's bring on our guy, Deven Marrero. You catch him on pre and post game on NESN. Dev, good morning, my man. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. Beautiful day here in Boston. Gotta love it.
Hey, the sun's out, the heat's coming up, the Heat is turning up with this team. The Sox coming off a win.
Man.
But let's start with the Heat even before this game. So the scene that got everyone saying, what's going on down there, was the Angels and the Red Sox pregame. Tyler Anderson going at it with first base coach Jose Flores. We got the footage for you guys right here. We want to take a look at it. I mean, what was going down? Shout out our NESN cameras capturing this.
Who was that looking? Was that Campbell?
I think that was Christian Campbell going, what's happening? Devin, as you see this.
You can read the lips pretty good in this. This is good stuff right here. Good pregame. Get the boys going. They need a little bit of action going. You know what I mean? But it's never good when a player is going after a coach, right? That's something that we don't want to see, and that's what the pitching coach is going over there about. But when the coaches get after it, that's where it gets fun.
Yeah, I love this fight from Jose Flores. That was Tyler Anderson going at him. Then the Angels pitching coach coming at Jose Flores. And
you can't be putting your finger in my face,
beard looks better than your beard.
Get your finger out of my face.
Is dumb.
Get your finger out of my face.
Yeah, man, that's just the boys. It's a Wednesday, early in the morning. None of them want to be out there.
Tired from the night before.
Plane and go home. But I love it, dude. It got the boys going a little bit yesterday.
He's speaking from experience, bro. You can tell.
And I'm going to say, Devin, that's what I want to ask. You are a player. I don't know if you've seen this exactly before, but when you see this type of fight from your first base coach, when you see this type of fight, and your manager standing up too, as we saw Cora eventually talk to Tyler Anderson on the side, what does that do for you as a player?
I mean, it's good, man. It's, everyone in that building is fighting for each other, whether it's the first base coach or an athletic trainer or one of the doctors on the team. Like, everyone is there for you, and when you see the passion, the fire, and, there's a lot of buildup in everybody right now. You saw Cora after game 2 really get a little emotional and really show, like, man, like, I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to let these kids know, hey, we'll get them tomorrow, but the same things keep happening. And, sometimes you're just going to explode and, show some passion that you really care and that this really matters. And you're trying to do everything possible to get an edge against your opponent, and it worked yesterday. Love to see it.
All right, Dev, look, I'll get back to the team, but we're going to focus on you here. I know you're California cool. You're laid back. Can't anything get you riled up. But do you have any beef stories? Like, did you get into any kerfuffles throughout your time? Can you share some stories of maybe throwing them things with somebody, or did it get close to it? Can you share any personal stories?
I mean, I'm more of a lover, not a fighter kind of guy, But man, we had some days at Arizona State when we played U of A.
Yep.
Those rivalry games, we fought every game. It seemed like. Taking each other out, and we had our moments with the Yankees, and Aaron Judge was on the other side in the minor leagues and stuff like that, but nothing crazy, man. those days are long and gone, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I miss those days where you have some guys get into it, but it's usually in the minor leagues is where it happened, because that's just a bunch of young kids
Yeah.
getting cranky and pissed
Right.
off, and
The fire still runs hot.
banged my girl back in the Dominican. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Old stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
I got you.
that's all old news now.
I got you.
What I like about that is you see the fight from Jose Flores. I think the whole city of Boston loved this moment because his team is struggling. They were on the brink of getting swept before the Angels pregame. You see your first base coach stepping up. You see players stepping up. And it is a part of, especially on your home field, literally at Fenway, you're not stepping down. And that's something the fans wanted to see. And it did translate to the 11-9 win, where the Bats had to fight, take a lead, tie it, and we saw Ceddanne step up.
Yeah, man. I mean, you need a little bit of something, you know. You need something to get the boys going, get the boys fired up, especially that early in the morning, those day games, you know, midweek. But yeah, man, it's good to see some fight in these guys, and you know, all it takes is that one thing to get the boys going, get the boys fired up. You know, especially they gave up 4 in the first, and they came back and scored 5 real quick.
Yeah,
you know, that's what you need, man. And that's one thing I don't question about this team, that these guys go out there and they battle and grind their butts off every pitch. You know, it's a young team, but you're seeing them fight and battle and not give up in these games. And listen, all their games are 1-run games. It's not like they're getting blown out. That's that's a good sign too. You know, like they're staying in games. It's just they can't have that one big hit to really break a game open. You know, they're just missing that one clutch hit, that one amazing at bat from a guy that really can turn a game around real quick.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's exactly where I was going. You know, it's June 5th, and I know fans are going crazy like the season's over. There's so much baseball left to be played. Can this fight that we're seeing, literally, from the Red Sox, carry over against the series against the Yankees? Like, can this carry over into this next series? Because this is a huge series.
Yeah, this is baseball, man. Listen, we got Buehler and Crochet going. You know, game 1 and game 2, that's always gives you a little bit of confidence going into a series, even when you're not playing that well. But yeah, man, these next 2 weeks are huge. You're playing the Yankees 2 series, and you got Tampa for a series, and you can make up some ground in the wild card, because to me the division is long gone. The Yankees are too good, and they're playing too well, and Judge has just been on fire. You know, so it's really about just getting this team some confidence, and this is a 2-week period where these games can give these guys some confidence, like, hey, like, we belong in this division, we belong in this wild card. But it all comes down to performing and winning these close games, because these 1-run games, they're daggers, man. You lose enough of those, and it really gets to you.
That's where I want to go, Deven. I love that you point out, hey, they're not getting blown out. They're in every game. The Bats rallied like they did last night. But what does it take for them to wake up in the basics of just focus on the fundamentals, end it with the field errors, make the smart plays defensively, make the simple throws? Because the reason you drop these 1-run games is they are self-inflicted wounds.
That's right.
How is it easy midseason to just eliminate the self-sabotage in a way? Because the Bats are doing their job, but we're seeing the defense falter time and time again.
Unfortunately, no, man. It takes time, because all of these mistakes are young mistakes. You know, me and Lou were talking about it yesterday. It's a young team, you know, and young teams take time. Like, and only way you get better with young players is putting them in there and getting them at bats, getting them innings. And you know, this is just the way the game is nowadays. You know, he said the game is getting younger, and it's not a good thing for baseball. You know, typically you would have a player get 3,000 at bats in the minor leagues before they came to the big leagues. Now they're only getting 500, you know, and that's a big difference. And they're getting those at bats in the big leagues and those innings in the big leagues. And this game is just a lot different when you get up here. It's faster. It speeds up on guys for some reason because of the pressure, especially here in Boston. You know, you're seeing a lot of our mental errors happen in Boston, in Fenway, where it should be a place where you feel the most comfortable. You know, but for some reason, when you're a young player here, you feel the pressure of, hey, we need to win, and the game just speeds up. And they're making errors that are mental errors, and that tells me that it's not their talent, it's what they have up here, and it's just their the immaturity of being rookies in this game. And, it takes time. It takes, we saw Mookie come up and get sent back down. We saw Mike Trout get called up and get sent back down because the game just was too fast for them at the moment. You see these superstars now that people don't realize and remember that these guys were up in the big leagues but got sent back down multiple times until they got to the big leagues and then just hit the ground running, and right now it's guys are getting up here and they stay here and they're learning in the big leagues, and it's tough to do, man. This game is hard as it is, and to be a 21, 22-year-old in Boston, like being a 21, 22-year-old playing for the Pirates is completely different than being a 22-year-old playing for the Boston Red Sox. Like that's the expectations here are you have to win.
Yep.
And that gets to young players that really care about this game,
Yeah, 4 guys in the lineup, less than a year and a half of service time at the MLB level.
Man.
Campbell Marcelo, not even 23 yet. Deven Marrero, always appreciate taking the time, my man. Thanks for the perspective as well. A young team, let's hope they turn it around. Catch them on pregame as well and postgame with TC Friday night between Sox and Yankees. Deven, appreciate taking the time, my man.
Thanks, fellas.
That's Deven Marrero. Make sure to catch him on NESN. We'll take another break here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. When we're back, we have Doug Kyed joining us. You know him from the Boston Herald. You know him covering the Patriots. Does a phenomenal job, but a very powerful movement is what he's doing. And hey, we have a great deal for you guys. If you sign up for the NESN 360 annual plan, you get 2 free tickets to a Sox game. Sign up today at NESN360.com for this limited time offer. NESN 360 plan and free tickets to a Red Sox game. We're back on Boston Has Entered the Chat. George Balekji, Travis Thomas. This is going to be a very special, very powerful next block we got you guys for this next 15 minutes. Let's bring him in. It's our guy, Doug Kyed from the Boston Herald. You guys know him for covering the Patriots, but we're talking about Doug today, something very powerful, very significant. But first things first, Doug, thanks for joining us, waking up, starting your day with Boston Has Entered the Chat, my man.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thanks for having me, guys. It's good to be back on NESN.
It's great to have you back. Again, the Alumni Network working strong here, always doing a great job covering the Pats. But today we're talking to you about your fundraising for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So right now, you are working to raise $100,000 for that society, Visionaries of the Year campaign. And this is all in honor of your daughter, Hallie, who passed away at the age of 2 after a battle with leukemia. Just want to start with sorry for what you've had to endure, but in a way, grateful that in her honor, in her legacy, you're working for something so no family hopefully one day has to endure this, and no child has to go through this as well, Doug.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we started the campaign, the Visionaries of the Year campaign, in late March. It actually wraps up today, June 5th. There's a big gala tonight in Quincy to celebrate everything that we've done, all the money that we've raised. And there is still time to get some donations in. So if you want to donate at princesshallieforever.com, that's the best way to still donate, get the money in. But no, it's been amazing to see the turnout of everyone coming out and donating, people in the NFL, people in Boston sports media, people all over the world donating to this cause, because obviously we wish more than anything else in the world that Hallie was still here with us, but if she can't be, then we can at least use her name to raise as much money for places like the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society as possible, because we want that cancer research still out there so that other families don't have to go through a similar thing that we did with Hallie, where she was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, and in April of 2023 she had numerous rounds of chemotherapy and radiation. She had a bone marrow transplant, and unfortunately she relapsed around November of 2023 and passed away in January. So anything that we can do to keep her name alive is really important. And when we hit that, when we reach that $100,000, we can use her name for research, and it's just a really amazing cause, and it's been great to see everyone come out for it.
Yeah, you see the link on your screen, princesshallieforever.com, HALLIE forever.com, princesshallie.com, to go ahead and donate. Doug, what do these donations go towards? We know about the treatment and the research being done, but what exactly, when people are wondering, where are my donations going? Where do they go towards to help beat this awful disease?
Yeah, we've really wanted to filter ours as much as possible through research, so that there's, new trials, new treatments. These are the things that people at LLS are trying to come up with, the new ways to help or cure blood cancers like leukemia and lymphoma. But, it also helps out families. Like the LLS does amazing work for families dealing with cancer, whether that is, pediatric cancer, whether that's adult cancers. They're an amazing organization that's able to help families who might not have the resources that we did when Hallie was sick. So it's a great organization that helps families in a number of different ways. And we're trying to focus our cause as much as possible through that research because, when we found out that Hallie did have a relapse in November, we immediately went into a trial, a new trial treatment for Hallie because we wanted to do anything possible that we could in hopes of curing her cancer or hopes of, making her live for a few months longer until there was new trials, new treatments. And that's what a place like LLS gives families hope to do.
Doug, I'm so sorry you and your family had to go through this, man. I ask you, can you give some words of encouragement to some families who are battling this cancer journey? What would you tell them right now?
Yeah, there is always hope. There was hope for us up until the very end with Hallie. Like on the day before she passed, actually her counts had risen, and they had given us this sense of hope, and I think that's what you just always have to hope for. And there's just amazing doctors and amazing researchers here in Boston. Obviously, our story did not end the way that we wanted it to, but I also feel like we were in the best place possible for this to happen because the people at Boston Children's Hospital were amazing. The people at the Jimmy Fund were amazing. I truly do believe that in donating to places like LLS, eventually there will be a cure for things like, Hallie's acute myeloid leukemia or lymphoma or ALL. And, I know a lot of families personally through this journey who have had better ends to their story, whether their kids did have AML or ALL. So there is hope for you. And if anyone out there is going through something like this, feel free to reach out to me on social media. Me and my wife will be able to talk to you and give you advice on things that helped us through all of this.
Doug, that's amazing, the support you give. And for you to be an advocate for families, and you want to be a resource yourself. Like, again, I give credit to you, your wife, your awesome daughter, Olivia, as well, who's your best friend. You always post about her. I remember always seeing the post of Hallie wearing her princess dresses, having her Barbie dolls. What for you is, the lasting memory you have of her? And, what stood out for you of how brave she was through her battle?
Yeah, it was really amazing. Like, she never seemed that affected by chemotherapy or radiation. But, I mean, the real lasting memory, and it's funny because my daughter, Olivia, she's 7. She was asking me, my wife, yesterday, like, what's your favorite memory of Hallie? And it's hard to say exactly what your favorite memory of your daughter is because you know them so well throughout those years. But through looking at videos, it's honestly how funny she was. She was just like effortlessly funny, always trying to make people laugh, always trying to make people smile. And the memory that I gave Olivia yesterday was that this was before she went to the hospital, but obviously I would always have football on during the week on like Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football when I wasn't actually at the stadium. And she would walk up to me even on like a Tuesday afternoon or something and hand me the remote and say like, football, and try to get me to put football on. And she kind of lost some of the love of sports watching when she was in the hospital, but during her days when she was still at home, she loved to watch football with her dad, which was really cool.
Love that. I mean, an extension of her parents. And for your daughter, Olivia, I mean, she's doing her own fundraising as well. I saw her page. Her goal is of 4,000. Is that the same thing if people donate to Princess Hallie forever? Or is it, hey, also go to Doug's Twitter page as well. If you're listening, go to his Twitter page. You'll see all the links too. What is Olivia's goal? What, how has she been as someone that's for support for you and your wife and your family through these difficult times?
Yeah, I mean, she's been amazing. She's the positive spirit in our house. She never stops talking. She's probably the most talkative person I've ever met in my entire life. But she through her school, she did a Hats for Hallie campaign where kids were supposed to come in and wear hats and donate money if they were wearing hats that day. And the turnout was incredible. She raised over $3,000 through that campaign alone. Like the her teacher basically handed us like a stack of cash coming out of school that day. There was just an incredible amount of money, and now so far she's raised, I think it's $4,600 overall. Wow. Just through that campaign, through us sharing her link through social media and through her school. So yeah, the best way is to look at my social media. I posted about her link a couple days ago, but yeah, she's doing a fantastic job. My wife's doing a fantastic job. Like I said, we've got a team of 21 people, which includes like my mom, my sister, my wife's sisters, friends, even like strangers, people who just wanted to give to this campaign. Yep. That now we've become really good friends with. Even two of Hallie's nurses from her time at Boston Children's Hospital are on our team as well, which is really touching to us.
Well, you mentioned that team. I'm sure that's where you get sort of this strength from, because your strength to me is incredible, Doug. I don't know how you do it. How do you sort of pull from that? Like, if you're giving words of encouragement to someone going through this and families going through this, where do they find that strength? Is it the team around you? Is it the family around you?
Yeah, that absolutely helps. Yeah, having a solid base around you, people who are checking in on you, people like when Hallie was first diagnosed, and then obviously when she passed, just lean on the people around you. Like, if they're willing to help with anything, like they will say like, we'll do anything for you. Like, come up with something for them to do, because like it really does help, and it really does make things easier. And not only that, I mean, yeah, my wife's been amazing, my mom, our friends, our family, my daughter. But even just while we were going through things, I've mentioned it before, but like the people at Boston Children's Hospital were really amazing. The nurses were really amazing. The like child life people were really amazing. Where like, if you were having a hard day, or even I was working through all of this, like they're more than willing to be like, hey, we'll watch Hallie for an hour, like get out of the hospital, do whatever you need to do. So that really helped at the time too. But no, obviously some days are better than others for me and my family, but through this campaign, it's been really powerful, because like the second day of the campaign was what would have been Hallie's 4th birthday. And obviously that day would usually be really difficult for us, but we were getting so many donations that like every time we got one of those emails that a donation had come through, it really brightened our day and made us happy and made us believe that we were doing something for Hallie. So that was really powerful as well.
You know, you cover sports. Did you feel as though sports helped you? Did you feel as though working, in a sense, gave you a chance to sort of escape this? Did working, in other words, did sports almost serve as a sort of a beacon of strength for you as well? Yeah,
it did. So my wife and I took different approaches throughout Hallie's, after she was diagnosed, where obviously one of us would have to take on a bigger load at the hospital. Right. So my wife was at the hospital 4 days a week. I was there 3 days a week. My wife paused work during that, and I kept working, kept covering the NFL and the Patriots. Wow. And I really do believe it did help a lot, because like I'm able to compartmentalize a decent amount, and I think that really helped me. Is that like, all right, when I'm at Gillette, it was, a season when Bill Belichick was still the head coach, and it's like, all right, I'm used to this. This was like a source of like normalcy for me to be in the media workroom, to be around my coworkers. And I want to shout out my coworkers as well. I mentioned Boston Sports Media, like they've been unbelievably supportive through all of this. My coworker, Andrew Callahan at the Boston Herald, he was able to pick up like any piece that he possibly could if I had to rush to the hospital for some reason, or if I couldn't cover a press conference. But yeah, no, like it was I thought it was the best thing for me working through everything. I still believe that. I know that it's not for everyone. I think that was the best thing for my wife to pause work. But for me, it's doing something that I love. I love football. I love my job. So it really did. It was a distraction. And that was another way that people were supportive, like people on the Patriots. Like I'll say, like now that he's retired, like David Andrews, he would check in on me like throughout the week. Or like throughout the year during that 2023 season. He'd either ask me how I was doing, he'd ask Andrew how I was doing. So that really meant a lot. And it's really cool to be able to cover players like David Andrews, who's been very supportive. Pop Douglas came out to one of our events in Weymouth this year. David Andrews was at that same event, and then like Deven and Jason McCourty have been unbelievably supportive through all of this. Matthew Slater's been supportive. Deron Harmon, all these former players have really come and supported me, which has been like, I don't know, obviously like your friends and your family, you expect all of that, but just a guy that you've covered, you don't necessarily expect it, and it does mean something a little bit different there.
Well, Doug, I'd say it's a reflection of you as a person. Like, you bust your butt. You and AC are one of the best combos, both being at the Herald but covering any team in the NFL. But I see the way that you make those relationships, and they're genuine, the way you connect with the guys. And when you talk about Olivia and you talk about Hallie, you know, kids are a reflection of the parents. And I think you as a person, you do an amazing job. And again, for you to come out and do all of what you're doing, man, I want to give you and your wife your flowers, because you are working so hard so parents don't have to go through what you guys did. And when I would be down at Gillette talking with you, I knew what you were going through. We'd be talking about music, tattoos, football, whatever. I'd ask you where you got which one. You always had a smile on your face, and it means a lot for what you're doing. I'm lucky I haven't been affected, you know, directly in my family with this disease, but thank you for you, because this makes a real difference, man. I appreciate you, Doug.
Yeah, no, you never think it's going to happen to you until it does. You know, I would always see those commercials for St. Jude, and it's just always felt like a nightmare. And then obviously sometimes the nightmare does happen to you. But a special shout out to my wife as well, Jen. Like I said, I've been like working through all of this and everything. She's been the brains behind the operation through this whole thing. Like, she's got spreadsheets, she's got all the number, like, because like there's money that we always have coming in, so she's able to monitor that. Like we would not be anywhere close to the number that we are without her doing all this legwork behind the scenes. So I'm the Visionary of the Year candidate, but she deserves it just as much, if not more, than I do.
Doug, shout out the wife, shout out everything you guys are doing. Remember, Princess Hallie Forever, Halli. If you're listening, that's how you type it. Also go to Doug Kyed's Twitter, DougKyed on X, Twitter, whatever you call it. He's tweeting out the links. Continue to support. Doug, thanks for fighting this battle, my man. We'll keep your message going strong. Thank you for everything, Doug.
Yep, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, Doug. All right, we'll take a quick break here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. When we're back, we'll have some more sports for you guys. Welcome back to Boston Has Entered the Chat. George Balekji, Travis Thomas. We got a fun one for you guys now. So the NBA, Adam Silver announcing a new All-Star game format. The exact format, doesn't know, but the teams is no longer East versus West. It's no longer Rising Stars against a team.
LeBron, you pick. KD, you pick your team. It's been so lame. Can we just be honest?
The game needs to be competitive.
Yes.
No more games totaling 475. Right? We can all start there. So the new format would essentially be Team USA versus Team the World. Now, after the Four Nations went down, and after we saw how bad the NBA All-Star break was this past winter, everyone was clamoring for this. I said this on this very show.
You did.
I did. But, it wasn't a one-of-one thought. It wasn't unique. So the teams are set. USA versus the World. Unfortunately, Jason Tatum won't be able to represent USA as he's recovering from his Achilles tear. If he does, that means he's made the most miraculous recovery of all. I want to hear, Trav, your Team USA. Let's start there. Who would be your roster of Team USA? And I want starting five. I want thought, not just throw guys out. Who's your starting five on Team
Can I volley a question back to you?
Yeah.
Are you glossing over the fact that I think this is stupid and it's not going to work
Why do you
on
think
purpose?
it's stupid?
Because we're going to lose. That's why. I was just looking this up. Before I give you my starting lineup.
No, let me hear it.
Points per game in the NBA last season. I just thought to myself, is there an American player who was like top three? Call me crazy, top three. SGA, Giannis, Jokic.
Okay.
So that answer is not no, but hell no. Okay? Then I thought, well, all of us think Jason Tatum deserved more love in the MVP voting, right? So let me look up MVP voting. Is there an American player that maybe sort of elbowed their way into the top three? Again, just my criteria there. Not no, but hell no. SGA, Jokic, Giannis. So the same three, different order. The defense rests, Your Honor. This isn't going to work. It's not the format, bruh. I'm talking to you, Adam Silver. Like, it's not the format. It's that your players don't care. And these international guys with the opportunity to stick it to us. The good old US of A, guess what they're going to do? Just that. They are going to work Team USA. So it's not the format. It's that most of your players in this league don't care, and the ones that do or can turn it up are not American. So, with that being said, here's my lineup.
Hey, last 5 MVP winners: Giannis,
Yes.
Jokic, Embiid,
Yeah.
SGA.
There you go.
I might be leaving one off there too. Hold on.
I guarantee it ain't an American.
Oh no, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, SGA. Jokic has won 3 of the last 5.
There you go. With that being said, my NBA USA team will be Steph, the old heads, Steph, LeBron, KD, Anthony Davis, and Ant Edwards. I'm going old heads. It's the only chance we have. That's it. I don't want the young. Now, Anthony Edwards is a young pup, but for the most part, give me the old guys. Because they'll have a little bit of pride in them, and they'll try to beat these guys, but they're not beating these guys. That's my USA team.
I'm going Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis, Paolo Banchero, Steph Curry, and Edwards. There's no way LeBron does not allow himself to be a starter. But then the bench: Mobley, LeBron, KD, Donovan Mitchell. Devin Booker, Tyrese Maxey.
I like the bench.
Right? But look at this. And that's like starting 5. Who plays the minutes? Who's the closing 5? That's what matters. My team world: Jokic, Giannis, Wemby, SGA, Luka. Bucket, bucket.
Yeah,
bucket,
Giannis,
bucket.
Jokic, Wemby, SGA, Luka.
And then think of the bench: Siakam, Sabonis, Sengun, Lou Dort. I mean, if Canada does their thing, they vote him in. It's all fan voting.
I think the
USA
USA is deeper. Is that fair?
But the world's
best
starters
are better. Which means we lose. That's what that means.
And if Wemby played a full season, he might have been 4th in MVP voting, if you think about it. His season was cut short.
Okay, let's stay here for a second. Do we care? Like as consumers?
I do.
You do?
One-off game, but the players have to care. Because if they don't care, I'm not tuning in the following year.
So you care.
I care to see how it goes.
All right.
I care to see the matchup. I care to see how the high quality of basketball will be. But
so then
players have to care.
So then you're the demographic. Then Adam Silver's a genius because he's changing the format, trying to draw in interest, which yours is peaked. Mine's not because I think we're going to get smoked. But, listen, if you can draw in people to watch this, Team USA versus the World All-Star Weekend, then it worked, right? The players buying in is a whole different. I don't even know how you do that. I always go back to money, right?
Yeah.
But they did that with this mid-season tournament that they got going, and the players still don't really care. I think some of these crappy teams care, but I don't think the good teams care. I don't know what you do. So, at this point, Adam Silver is throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks, right? And I understand that. Maybe this will, but in the end, I mean, we see the Olympics. In the Olympics, our guys care. There is that pride. Hey, we're representing our country, so the buy-in is there. And for an all-star weekend, I really don't have much faith in our guys, in Team USA, that this is going to be some big Rocky IV moment for them. They don't care. Olympics, yes. We saw Steph literally take over the world stage in the Olympics. All-Star Weekend, it ain't happening, brah.
We'll see the level of play. Guys want to be in Cancun. Hey, so breaking news happening right now. The Bruins just tweeted out a video teasing the announcement for a new head coach. We have the video for you guys right here. 5 seconds, short, sweet, to the point. You see the head coach office and grabbing the name plaque. So we're expecting an announcement from the Bruins at any moment now of who the next head coach for this original 6 franchise will be and who will lead the Bruins into next season.
The Bees are back, baby!
I'm not going to say it again. I want to see who the head coach is. I'm just excited to find out. To the point we were making, it's no longer early in the week. It is now 3 weeks away from the draft. A decision has to be made, and there needs to be new leadership in that dressing room for a team that is retooling to get back to long-term postseason success.
Well said. I'm just happy that it's done because I told you earlier in the show I needed someone to explain it to me like I'm a kindergartner why there's no head coach announcement. And here we go. We don't know when, but it's coming soon. Thank goodness. Last team without a coach, no more. No mas.
We'll have the announcement of the Bruins head coach on NESN Nation for Hour 2 of Boston has entered the chat. Hey, make sure to get the latest up-to-date live Boston sports headlines like who the next head coach for the Bees will be. Tune into Boston has entered the chat every Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on NESN.
Yes, Lord.
9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on NESN Nation. That's Boston has entered the chat wherever you get your content, YouTube, Spotify, and on NESN and NESN Nation as well. We'll see you guys after this break on NESN Nation with the Bruins' next head coach. Good morning. Welcome in to Boston Has Entered the Chat. Thursday, June 5th, the show where we take what you guys are blowing up your group chats about and bring the conversation to you.
Yeah,
you want to tweet at us, use a hashtag NESN Chat. You want to email us, do the chat at NESN.com, or you want to leave a voicemail, 617-790-0928. George Balekji, Travis Thomas. Leave a voicemail. What do you think of the Bruins' next head coach? We don't know it yet, but an announcement is on the heels of happening.
It's imminent, and it's finally here. And you and I have been talking about this ad nauseum here on the show. And you all, who have been with us, first of all, thank you. If you're new to the show, welcome. But you and I have been talking about this. When? When are the Bruins going to name a new head coach? They're the last team without one. The time, it appears, is now.
Yeah, so the Bruins just tweeted out a video a few moments ago. See it on your screen right here. Taking a video of the head coaching office, grabbing the name plaque, simple. 5 seconds, but the Bruins look like they are on the cusp of announcing who their next head coach is.
Yes.
This is a franchise that sold at the trade deadline, got rid of all their veterans.
Yes.
And after having Bruce Cassidy be the head coach from 2017 to 2022, Jim Montgomery for 2022 to 2024, short-lived into that season. Both have success of taking them to the postseason, but they miss it this year.
Yes, Lord.
This is such a monumental timing for this original six franchise. Missing the playoffs is not what the Bruins are about. But not being serious contenders for a Stanley Cup, it's not what the Bruins are about either. We know the reports are Marco Sturm, who's the AHL head coach for the Ontario Reign, or Mitch Love, who has been an assistant for the Washington Capitals the last 2 seasons, are the 2 leading candidates. When I look at Marco Sturm, that's a guy that played 5 years in Boston, knows what it is like to play in this pressure cooker of a market and a city, understands what the culture is, was a guy that contributed and helped a Patrice Bergeron win, as a Zdeno Chara win, understands the culture. But his AHL experience is what sticks out to me, because that is a guy that knows how to develop young players.
That's a key.
And that's what this roster is right now, Travis. If Marco Sturm is the hire, that's a guy that knows how to develop young players.
By the way, it should be noted, whoever it is, you better have that skill set, because that's exactly what you're walking into here in Boston, right? We don't know the name yet, so I'm just saying whoever it is, clearly the Bruins have done their due diligence, because it's taken this long, George. So I have to believe that they have turned over every stone here, okay? And look, maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment, but watching that Stanley Cup final game last night for the Oil overtime win, that was a complete team win, brother. Skinner was really good between the pipes. Draisaitl's Draisaitl. McDavid's great. It was a team collective win. So if you want to get to that level, if you want to get back to winning the Boston Bruins way, winning Stanley Cups, going to the playoffs, that is what you must do. So whoever comes in here has to be able to develop your young players across the board. Not just one star here, one guy there. No. It has to be a culture. It has to be a system created and implemented and put in place in order to regain the success that this franchise once had.
Yeah, and if it isn't Marco Sturm, if it is a Mitch Love, that's a guy that's been on the Capitals bench the past 2 seasons. But I look at a Marco Sturm again, history with the city, understands the front office, understands what it's like to be in Boston, and beyond the experience of being an AHL head coach, 4 seasons with the Los Angeles Kings as an assistant coach on their bench. So he has the head coaching experience of developing players. He has the assistant coach experience of being at the NHL level. Do you want some NHL head coaching experience in that? Sure. But with a young roster that they retooled, and again, when we saw guys like Charlie Coyle, Brad Marchand, Brandon Carlo, Trent Frederick, dealt at the deadline, bringing in some young talent like a Casey Middlestat, bringing in young prospects like a Max Vonner, guys like that, and a Fabian Lysell, who Bruins fans still want to see break through and have an impact at the NHL level. Going with a guy with an AHL background, that again, I keep saying it, but that's what it is at this point. What the Bruins did, the moves they made, how the roster is now, it's all about having long-term success. It's not selling and rebuilding to get back to the postseason to contend for the Stanley Cup for a year or two. It is being Stanley Cup contenders for the next 5, 6, 8 years and beyond. Quick retool you have to do, but long-term success that's sustainable to be back to contending and making it to the postseason.
By the way, the elephant in the room here is we're talking about, you know, this young team. You need a coach that can work with all this and put what you're talking about is what I say. You're putting a system in place, building a culture, right? You're about to get even younger. And this is one of the reasons why it was driving me crazy that there hasn't been an announcement yet, because the damn draft is, 3 weeks away?
Yes.
So let's go. I'm so happy that a coach, we don't know who it is just yet, it's coming, but at least we know it's coming.
Yes.
Like, give us a coach so we can go ahead and focus in. This draft is coming fast. You got to get a kid in here who can help you right now and also for the future.
And think about the players that they acquired at the deadline. Frazier Minton, Casey Middleton, Will Zellers, Max Wanner.
All young.
They got Jacob Lauko back in a Bees sweater as well. And the draft picks they accrued, a first, a second from Carolina, a second from St. Louis, a third, a fourth from the Philadelphia Flyers, and potentially multiple firsts down the road as well, depending more on how trades can pan out. This is a team that picked a lane. And that's the one thing that they weren't delusional about where they were.
Yeah.
They weren't pretending, a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Of, hey, we're still on the cusp. They said we have to hit restart now.
Right.
After spending big, a Charlie McAvoy, right? Going out and getting guys
the
like
championship window was open.
or extending guys, Charlie McAvoy. The
Their championship window was open. It was.
I mean, we saw the historic season a couple years ago get bumped in the first round by the Florida Panthers.
And they really ran it back when you think about it.
And we see the following season beat the Leafs, but fall again in the next round to the Panthers.
That's when it was.
But it was to a point where it hit a ceiling with the core that they had.
Yes.
They had to get younger. They had to get faster in the modern-day NHL.
That's right. And how many teams across sports do we see not have the courage to do that? How many times?
The lane. They did that.
Yep.
We see what they have on the blue line. Hampus Lindholm, who was never healthy at all last season. Charlie McAvoy, who was lost after the Four Nations. Nikita Zadorov, Mason Lohrei. And even thinking about their big signing going into last season was an Elias Lindholm being a center and a 200-foot center. We find out after the season he was playing through an injury the entire year as well. So the veterans to get healthy. Let's see Jeremy Swayman year 2 under that big contract, year 2 being the guy. But again, year 1 with a new head coach leading that franchise.
Can't wait.
It's important that they nail it on the voice.
I can't wait, bro. I can't wait. I'm just so excited. And I know, a lot of us have to sort of temper ourselves with the excitement of a head coach announcement, but also we know this is going to be maybe not a long road ahead. We certainly don't hope that, but it is a road ahead. You're going to have to implement the system we're talking about. Get these young guys in, acclimated to said system, said culture, and then start winning, right? So it is a process, but you can't even begin the damn process without someone to run it, right? So at least we know who the head guy is going to be soon.
Yeah, and who it will be, whoever it will be, this hire has to be right, because to see Bruce Cassidy go from 2017 to 2022, go on, win the Cup with the Knights. Jim Montgomery comes in. They have the historic season. He had his hands on the culture, on that dressing room, but had the great leadership of a Patrice Bergeron.
That's right.
But for Montgomery to be fired, he goes to the Blues. Obviously, we saw with Joe Sacco being the interim head coach, this cannot be another 2-3 year solution.
No.
You want whoever the head coach is now to lay down the foundation of a culture. It's such an overused word in sports, but it does matter.
Sure.
Especially with how young their roster looks. It's one of the youngest in the NHL when it comes to the guys they have on the NHL level.
Yeah.
Whoever this head coach is, it's about developing them now in their farm system, but also developing the young talent that will be playing. But there is the mix of veterans. A guy like David Pastrnak, all he's achieved and accomplished and been through. Charlie McAvoy, the Lindholms, I mentioned that again. And having a guy like Casey Middleton, young but has played a lot of NHL hockey, the head coach this hard to get it right, for him to get it right and get the job done, is so instrumental. Because we know how it is in Boston. We know the expectations. We know the demands. We know what the demands are inside TD Garden as well.
Sure.
It's playoffs. It's contending for a Stanley Cup. This will be big, whoever they announce. We're expecting this announcement to come soon, within the next 5 minutes or so of who their next head coach is.
I also think it's something to be said hearing you talk about that, you have to start a rebuild here, but it can't take forever. It made me think about
it's in Marco Sturm. That's the nameplate. Yes.
Let's go.
It is Marco Sturm, now announced as head coach. Bruins just tweeted it out 45 seconds ago. So Marco Sturm is the next head coach for the Boston Bruins. Marco Sturm played 5 seasons in Boston, spent 4 years as an assistant coach for the LA Kings, has been an AHL head coach for the Ontario Reign. The Boston Bruins now introducing their 3rd head coach since 2017, Marco Sturm, former player, head coach at the AHL level, experience on the NHL bench of the LA Kings. He's the next guy to lead the Bruins into the future.
Toby, go get some champagne, baby! Hallie, we got any Vivas in the back? Let's go. Bruins got a head coach. Chop, chop. It's our guy, Toby. He loves us. We're going to celebrate.
I don't care. It's 9:09 in the morning.
Yeah.
Get the champagne
It's happy
out.
hour somewhere.
Get the bubbly popping.
Woo!
So Marco Sturm in as head coach. Bruins just tweeting that out a minute ago. What do you think of this hire?
I love the hire for everything you said. And it actually rolls right in the point I was making before the news officially broke. We look around sports and we see all these bottom feeders that are perennial bottom feeders. Browns come to mind, Raiders. I'm talking about all the sports. Wizards, A's. In hockey, there is parity. Okay, you can be at the bottom, but not for long. All right? The Bruins don't belong in no damn bottom, baby. Sturm about to get them right. The Bruins are back. Look at that smile. That's a handsome man right there. That's a leader of men. If I could skate, I'd skate through a wall for him. Let's go, Bruins!
You wish your knees could handle those skates. And that's Marco Sturm, who played over 980 games at the NHL level.
Let's go.
Understands what it takes to relate to players. Understands what it takes to get through an 82-game grind. To play that at the NHL level, to coach on an NHL bench like the LA Kings, who are one of the more successful franchises in the sport.
Big facts.
And have success. Maybe not every year going deep into the playoffs, but understands what it takes to be a competitive team. Again, this is a Bruins team. Call it rebuilding, call it retooling, call it revamping, renovating, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
They had to hit reset on the roster, in their farm system, with their draft capital. Now it's Marco Sturm, Don Sweeney, leading this team into the future. Cam Neely at the top of it all. They have the draft picks. They have the revamped roster. They have the veterans under contract long-term as well. Marco Sturm, the next head coach for the Boston
Okay, do me a favor. Grab your notes. This is what I'm doing. I want you to follow me here. I've already started.
I'm not throwing them in the air.
I've already started my questions because you know he's coming here to Boston, has entered the chat. You know he's going to interview with us. So look, here, tell the people what my first note. What's my first question to him? Go ahead and read that to the people.
How long till you bring the cup back to Boston?
I think it's a fair question.
It is.
I think it's a fair question.
But
the clock starts now, baby. Let's go.
My question will be, what do you see in a Casey Middlestat? What do you see in Elias Lindholm, a David Pastrnak, a Charlie McAvoy?
Maybe you should go
Middlestat,
first.
again, 26 years old, good center, 6'1", 195. Had 150 points in his last 225 games played at the NHL level. And comes from the Avs, who have championship experience as well.
Yeah.
It's with these trades. What do you see in the prospects, like a Max Wanner, who was part of that Trent Frederick deal? It was the same thing of some of the guys they get back, former Bruins players, guys that are new to that Bees sweater.
Sure.
The big thing, though, is, to your point, and that's what the...
You should ask first, then.
That's what the goal is.
Yes.
It is a cup.
Yes.
It is not getting there and
ultimate
falling
goal.
short.
That's right.
It is not having fantastic regular seasons, getting bounced in the first or second round. It is getting back to contending for cups.
Okay.
But how you get to that point, how soon till the cup comes back to Boston?
Sure.
The question is, what do you see with this roster? Who are the pillars?
Yeah.
And what about you makes you the guy that you can develop this talent?
If you're establishing the culture, how do you want to build this Bruins team?
Yeah.
Is it speed? Is it skill? Is it physicality? Is it all the above? Is it a balance of all the above? Is it stars? Is it a system? I think there's a lot of questions here to be asked, obviously, but the main one I'm asking is, how long till we back on the top where we belong? Because that's what I want to know. And that's what this man, we're hoping, brings to Boston. I'm ready for it, George.
Just think about the total imports they got at the deadline. Just the deadline alone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players, whether NHL level or in the system. They acquired 7 more draft picks, one being the conditional draft pick from the Panthers as well. That was Brad Marchand, 36 years old. Charlie Coyle, 32 years old. Brandon Carlo, 28. Justin Brazeau, 27. Trent Frederick, 26. All traded
overnight.
at some point. Yeah, bring in Casey Middlestat, 25. Lauco, 23. Warner, 21. Minton, 20. Zellers, 18. Some of those guys not ready for the NHL yet.
Yeah.
Guys are just prospects. Other guys that are seen as NHL players are at that point already. They chose a path, and with this Marco Sturm hire, it also reflects what the vision is for this team.
Yeah.
Again, it's development. It's not bring someone in that can get the most out of a team, but eventually that voice runs dry in 2 or 3 seasons.
Sure.
It's someone that can develop the young talent and make it, again, sustainable success.
I'm excited. And the Eastern Conference, too, a lot of those teams are older, if we're being honest, right? So the Bruins have an opportunity here to acquire the talent they need, get the system in place. They now have the coach, build the culture you need, and then however many years it is, a year or two, whatever, by the time they're starting to hit their stride, the Eastern Conference, in theory, should be wide open for the taking because a lot of these teams at the top are older.
Mm-hmm. This is big where just get the hire right, go with someone young. And it is, again, it started at the trade deadline doing the retool.
Yeah.
Get all the draft picks. Now 3 weeks away from the draft. And for Marco Sturm, someone that knows the Bruins, is familiar with working in this building. This was as a player for 5 years, but now as a head coach. Him, Don Sweeney, Cam Neely all have to be on the same exact page. What's the identity of the team? What's your coaching style? And what gets them back to contending for cups? We'll take a quick break. Boston has entered the chat. When we're back, plenty more on the hiring. Marco Sturm,
yes.
the next head coach of
yes.
the Boston Bruins. Travis Thomas George Balekji will be right back with you guys on Boston's entered the chat right after this. Welcome back to Boston has entered the chat. George Balekji, Travis Thomas. We'll get right to it. Marco Sturm announces the next head coach for the Boston Bruins just minutes ago, and the Bruins now putting out a statement. Here is from Bruins general manager Don Sweeney on Marco Sturm. Throughout this process, our goal was to identify a coach who could uphold our strong defensive foundation while helping us evolve offensively. We are also looking for a communicator and leader, someone who connects with the players, develops young talent, and earns the respect of the room. Marco impressed us at every step with his preparation, clarity, and passion. His path, playing for multiple NHL teams, coaching internationally, of course, led Team Germany to a silver medal in 2018, and leading at both the AHL and NHL levels has shaped a well-rounded coach who's earned this opportunity. As a former Bruin, he understands what this team means to the city and our fans. We are embracing a new direction with Marco behind the bench and are confident in his energy, standards, commitment to a competitive, hard-nosed brand of hockey, reflecting exactly what the Bruins should be.
Okay, that's what we talked about. What do you want in terms of building this culture, in terms of building this system? It sounds like they're going well-balanced, which is great. That's the new NHL anyways, George. And we just talked about this. I called myself a prisoner of the moment because I just watched the Oilers win in overtime game 1. But that's a complete balanced hockey team. And by the way, they have a star in Connor McDavid that they had to figure out how to build around this guy. This dude was so good. His early teams, well, the defense wasn't there, but, you know, the scoring was. And then they got tougher defensively, but it was too much pressure on McDavid. Now they're a well-balanced team. We saw it last night. Skinner in net. Draisaitl. Much better defense than over the years. And here they are, I think, on the cusp of winning a Stanley Cup. I think. We'll see. The Panthers have something to say about that. But I think the Oil are going to get it done. I use that point as to say, starting from scratch here now with the youth movement and you're building this, you have to have a vision of where the hell you're going when you're building. You don't just build. What are we trying to build? In that statement right there, he just told you. We want everything. Offense, defense, we need to be a balanced hockey program. That's exactly where the Bruins are headed, and I'm excited for it. Now, we got to be patient. Don't get me wrong. As I bring up the Oil, I'm not saying the Bruins are in the Stanley Cup Finals next season, although that'd be great. But I am saying we have to exercise some patience, but at least now we have a blueprint for what we're building. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is a guy that was leading the Ontario Reign in the AHL the last 3 seasons. 4 years before that, on the bench for the LA Kings. And in his final season as an assistant coach, helped lead them to their first playoff berth, Stanley Cup playoff berth in some years. We saw him as a GM and a head coach for Team Germany. There's international experience. There's NHL experience. There's AHL developing experience. Along with the Reign, leading them to playoff berths time and time again throughout his tenure there as head coach. Then you go back to what he did in 5 years, from 2005 to 2010, being a player for the Bruins and also as well being a guy throughout the NHL in his playing career. Over 980 games played. Relates to the players, knows how to develop young talent, and knows what it takes to coach at the NHL and international level. That's Marco Sturm. Let's take a look at Twitter. Let's see the tweets coming in reacting to the Marco Sturm hiring for the Boston Bruins. Nate, at the Bruin Project, Bruins, LF. There's a photo of Marco Sturm, winter, the game-winning goal he had. Dino Mack at NHL Bruins. Great pick. Short, to the point, simple. Agree with you on that one, Dino Mack. Byron's Bitz's burner. Okay, that was a good one. A German head coach back in my life. Everything's gonna be fine. Is that Jurgen Klopp?
Yeah, it is. Look how hype he is.
Liverpool Bruins overlap there. Jim DeMarco, please bring back physical, fast, big, bad Boston Bruins style hockey. Back, a bunch of dots there from Jim DeMarco. I mean, we heard it from Don Sweeney in a statement. Zubik just tweeted out that big smile from Marco Sturm.
That's a handsome man right there.
The excitement, and to your point, Trav, a head coach being named.
Yeah.
A vision now of the team, how it's going to be coached, who the guy is leading this franchise, and who will be developing this roster as well. And again, the key bringing it up too, who will be coaching these veterans to get the most out of them.
Yes,
David Pastrnak got paid. Charlie McAvoy got paid. Pavel Zacha, Elias Lindholm, along with Hampus Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, Jeremy Swayman. All those guys got paid.
Facts.
A lot of dudes. Then there's the younger players that we saw the flashes. Can it be sustainable? Matty Patra, Mason Lerai. What can Marco Sturm do in this infusion where you have the pillars? You have one of the best goal scorers in the NHL in David Pastrnak. You have a deep blue line as well when we're talking about Lindholm, McAvoy, Zadorov, Lerai, young and old, guys that are inexperienced and guys that are veterans. What can Sturm do it with this melting pot of talent and experience with the Bruins?
I think he's going to do just fine. And I think you hit on something earlier, and you're right, where Marco Sturm checks every box. Experience as a player, experience as a coach, the area, understands, loves the area. That matters too. I think, obviously, you just saw on Twitter there, George, the reaction is apropos. I think people are excited for this coach. I do wonder what took so long, though, with this.
I think it's the Dallas Stars getting eliminated.
Okay.
I think, again, what was the word you used? Due diligence. You said that in hour one.
But this is a guy, in theory, you should have familiarity with, no? This should have been a week ago. What are we waiting for?
But who the other head coaching candidates emerge to be.
Yeah.
Once Dallas gets eliminated, Nikita Donskov.
Right.
He emerges. That's a guy that Don Sweeney knows. Donskov was an assistant coach for Canada and Four Nations.
Right.
Don Sweeney was a GM. I'm just saying of who I think it could be.
Sure.
When Peter DeBoer sounds like he's on the way out with the Stars, picking up the phone. That's an actual NHL head coach, a guy that has that experience. Is DeBoer out? What's happening? But then they look at the timeline, and then they go, we need to make a decision now.
Right.
It's doing your due diligence, not leaving any stone unturned.
They did.
But also having the sense of urgency. And yes, to your point, the draft's 3 weeks away.
Yes.
You had to hire a head coach.
Hell yeah. I remember talking to you about this last week, and we were thinking Monday of this week.
Yep.
And even that was late in our mind.
Yep.
But here's another thing. I think this is advantage of the guy they have, because if you think about waiting and due diligence and being the last team to get a head coach signed, sealed, and delivered, it means they didn't settle, George.
Yeah.
I think that's a position of power too. We're not just stuck with this guy. We, as you said, every stone unturned. We waited this long. We talked to all these guys. We interviewed all these people, and this is our choice. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? You're not stuck. You're not like, okay, I guess remember back in the day when we played pickup and the last guy would be standing there like, all right, I guess you're on my team. That's not what this is. This is a position of, we looked at every candidate, weighed every option. Yeah. You're our guy, and I love it.
That was, guys, Mitch Love associated with the Bruins. Jay Woodcroft, who's with the Edmonton Oilers, associated with the Bruins.
Great names.
Well, right? Then it comes into a Marco Sturm. Also a statement put out by Marco Sturm from the Boston Bruins. Boston has always held a special place in my heart, and I know how much this team means to the city and to our fans. I felt that passion as a player, and I can't wait to be behind the bench and feel it again. I'm excited to get to work and do everything I can to help this team succeed.
Bro.
That's a guy that again, and I think that was something that stuck out. As you're trying to figure out, everyone has experience. Everyone has different types of resumes, right?
Yeah.
And that was when I was looking at a Donskov and I was looking at a Marco Sturm. Well, what's the difference, right? They're both are NHL level assistants.
Sure.
Donskov has more NHL assistants experience, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Marco Sturm, what stands out is that right there, the understanding of Boston. There is, and we say it all the time, Boston is one of the more unique cities to compete in for any sport at any level. It's Boston, it's Philly, it's New York. The microscope, the pressure, the stage, it's different. Especially in Boston, that is a hockey city. New York has all those teams. They got 2 NHL teams, the Devils, sure, whatever, and the Islanders. Philly has the Flyers, right? But in Boston, it's a hockey city. You go to Charlestown, on any given weeknight or on the weekends, you see roller hockey, street hockey being played. You see nets on every single driveway all over throughout New England and throughout the area. It's different in Boston. Marco Sturm understands that. And that's something that he brings to the table that you need in your head coach.
I remember when I first got the job here at NESN and we were moving, and my kids said, so are we going to play hockey? And they had never asked me that in life ever, but they even know. We're going to Boston. Are we going to play hockey, Daddy? And I was like,
know.
Yes, you are. And then I got here and I saw the prices for them to play hockey, and I said, soccer soccer is really cool. So we're a soccer family. But no diss to hockey. Brother just needs a little paper to, ice time's a little expensive.
Well, I know your son wants to be a goalie. That's a whole other level.
Facts. Now, George, I'm looking at the Eastern Conference because I said this to you earlier. We should talk timeline here if we have time to do it. But
yeah, we do. We got time.
I'm looking at the Eastern Conference, and I told you, Lightning, Panthers, Canes, Capitals, some of the oldest teams in the NHL. So we should have the discussion of what does this retool look like timeline-wise? Because these teams ain't getting any younger. All these teams I named were playoff teams, obviously. Panthers we see in the finals. Lightning, Panthers, Canes, Capitals. Islanders also up there. That was a team that was fighting for a wild card, didn't make it. But all these teams are getting older. So as I see it in my head, by the time the Bruins are ready to compete for a cup, let's talk timeline.
Yeah.
But these teams will be getting older, and it should be a championship window and a window for success opening again for the Bruins.
You see the older age, the average of the Oilers, the Lightning, teams like that. The Bruins got a lot younger.
That's right.
And that's as those teams phase out, the Bruins retool.
That's all I'm saying.
To get in.
The timeline should match up.
We'll take another break on Boston Has Entered the Chat. When we're back, our guy, Adam Pellerin, will be joining us, talking more for the Marco Sturm hire, the next head coach of the Boston Bruins. We'll be right back after this break. We're back on Boston Has Entered the Chat, and we just got a +1.
Ta-da!
Adam Pellerin, you guys know him on pre and post, ringside with the Bruins. Catch him on the Hockey Hub, too.
My man! Let's go! What's up, brother?
Not just waking up, not just bringing the energy, joining us in studio. Adam, you're the best. Marco Sturm, next head coach for the Boston Bruins, officially announced. Long awaited,
yes, Lord.
Anticipated. What do you think of Sturm as the next guy to lead the team?
Yeah, so it's an interesting hire, right? Because you're looking at a guy that doesn't have any NHL head coaching experience, and we sort of knew that might happen based on the end of season press conference with the ownership, right?
Yeah.
With Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, Charlie Jacobs, and hearing Don Sweeney say, not necessarily had NHL head coaching experience, but exposure, right?
Yeah.
And obviously Sturm has exposure to the NHL, being an assistant with the Kings, and obviously most recently in the AHL with the Ontario Reign. But it's an interesting hire because you're giving a guy an opportunity, and I thought that stood out in the press release, right? Because I read the press release very quickly before I came out here.
Right.
And I believe Don Sweeney's quote was along the lines of, this is somebody that deserves an opportunity. And so what do you have in Sturm? You have a young guy who's 46 years old, I believe.
Yes.
Who has coached 3 years in the AHL, has international coaching experience, obviously close to 1,000 games in the NHL. And you're looking for a good communicator, right?
Sure.
I think that, this Bruins team could have some young players. And I think it's important to have somebody in place who's not that far removed from the game. A la Bruce Cassidy, if you remember, right, was the head coach of the Providence Bruins, came onto the Bruins as interim head coach, then hired full-time a few years back. And one of the things that people were talking about with him as one of his qualities was the fact that he could connect with some of the younger guys that were coming up, right? Because he coached them in the AHL and he knew how to sort of communicate with those guys. So you're looking for a happy medium too, right? You want somebody who can connect with the young players, but you also have the existing stars in the room too, and David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, and Jeremy Swayman, and so on.
That'll be the interesting part.
Every time I'm around you, I try to get perspective as someone who grew up here watching Bruins hockey and then transitioned as a professional to covering it.
Yeah.
What do you want to see? Like, kind of tugging on heartstrings here, but we're starting from the beginning. We're building this. What do you want to see the Bruins become? Like, as you sort of harken back to the glory days, but also recognize the new NHL as well,
right?
How do you want them to sort of put this together? What do you want the Bruins to look like?
Well, I think that the biggest thing with the Bruins over the last however many years, a long time, is the thing that stands out about the Bruins when compared to the rest of the league is the culture. Right, the culture is such a big part of who the Bruins are, and it has been for a very long time. And you start obviously with Zdeno Chara and Patrice Bergeron. Brad Marchand carried that torch to keep the culture intact in the room. And I think that based on the number of changes that you had, the trade deadline, you bring in young guys, you bring in new guys at the start of the season. There's a culture shift, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a bad thing. It just means that it's different now.
It's changed.
And so I think that the priority number one as head coach of the Bruins is establishing that culture in the room. And, obviously there's a lot more that goes with that and building a hockey team, but I think that's where you start.
Okay.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, too, what Don Sweeney said, we want someone we were looking for a communicator, a leader, connects with players, develops young talent, and he ended it with, He is a well-rounded coach who's earned this opportunity. And with all of that, the AHL experience, international experience, 4 years on a bench with the LA Kings as well, has that NHL exposure for this team with how young they are, but also, to your point, the infusion. It's Pastrnak, McAvoy, Lindholms, Zacha, Swayman, Zadorov. I might be leaving some guys off on there. Get younger down the middle with the Casey Middlestat. That's what I think is so important with a Marco Sturm, is a guy that understands to develop, communicate. You point out what was so important for Bruce Cassidy to have success. That's what made a lot of sense. As Marco Sturm's name came up, and it's someone that used to play in Boston, of course, for 5 years as well, he understands what it's like to play in the city, but he understands, to your point, developing talent and connecting with those young guys.
It reminds me a little bit, if we're going to do a cross-sport comparison,
Let's do it.
and I know that people are kind of down on the Red Sox right now, to be honest, the way they're playing, but it's Alex Cora, right? Alex Cora is a guy that they brought in, somebody who played in Boston, who didn't have any managerial experience, was on the bench for Houston, and they gave him an opportunity, and all he did was in the first year was win the World Series, right? I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying that
but it could.
But it could.
But it could.
You never know how things play out, right? Number 7 overall pick, moves in free agency, trades. But anyway, I digress. But it's not unprecedented, that a coach without any, experience at the highest level, whatever sport you're talking about, can have success early on.
Yeah.
And remember, this is not a rebuild. They're not stripping it down to the studs, right?
Yeah.
You have, as I mentioned, guys in place who are pretty damn good, right? David Pastrnak and Swayman, and you mentioned some of the other names as well. You have McAvoy, you have Zadorov, again, year one, right? Year one for players in any sport, in any city, there's an adjustment period sometimes, right? And I think we saw that with Nikita Zadorov, and I think as the year went on, we started to see him play a lot better, and obviously there were a lot of changes as well. And Elias Lindholm dealing with that back injury at the start of the year, right? That obviously hampered him, and we saw, how well he played towards the end of the year, skating with David Pastrnak, and we saw how well he played in the World Championships as well. All the Bruins, really, that were playing.
Yeah, they did.
The World Championships had a good summer. So, you got the fresh start with a new head coach.
Yeah.
You have a good summer at the international level, maybe a springboard for success going into training camp.
Okay, but that's short term, and I'm walking with you on that, but let's keep walking.
Yeah, sure.
Before you came on, you heard me and George. I
didn't hear you, actually. I was
you didn't?
up.
Okay.
I was reading the press release.
I don't blame you.
So it surprised me.
He's
All
a
right. What did you
student of the
say?
game.
I had pitched the idea of us having the discussion of the timeline for when this team gets back to the playoffs competing for Stanley Cups, okay?
Yeah, sure.
And so the point I made was I'm looking at the oldest teams in the NHL, a list, right? And I just looked Eastern Conference. Most of the teams at the top are old as hell. Lightning, Panthers, Canes, Capitals. These are teams that are at the top right now that the Bruins have been competing against anyways. But they're getting older. Bruins are now younger, new coach, looking to get back there. I think timeline-wise, are we talking 2-3 years here, you think? Is this? And I know we talked about, well, it could happen in year one. It probably won't.
Right.
So are we talking 2 to 3 years here where we think this Bruins team could be back competing at that upper echelon? Because if so, these teams I just told you are getting older. So if you're talking championship windows here, it's ripe for the picking for the Bruins.
Yeah, and again, those other teams could address that too. Right?
They could.
So you never know.
They could.
But in terms of, just looking at the Bruins, I would just look at history. And what does history tell you in terms of, what is the Bruins' organizational philosophy? Is that we want to compete for Stanley Cups.
Sure.
Right? And so they made and again, people say, oh, you made the playoffs 8 years in a row. What does that mean if you don't win a cup? Well, I mean, it does mean something.
Of course it does.
Because it does show you that there is a commitment to being in the dance.
And you're close.
And if you're in the dance, you have a chance.
That's right. You're close.
So I think that, based on that and based on, the fact that they got guys in place and they'll make moves in the offseason. They have the number 7 overall pick. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Sure.
So I think, within a couple of years, absolutely be a contender.
Okay.
No question about it. Especially, look who you inked up. You inked up, I know Jeremy Swayman had a bad year.
Yeah.
Right? He's your goaltender for the future.
Yes.
David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, guys who are veterans, who are on long-term deals that can help.
Playoff experience.
With playoff experience. They can build that foundation. So that's a good jumping off point, right? You're not starting from square one here.
Yep.
Right.
It's not an entirely young roster. It's not entirely
Well, that's
young
why they don't use the
lineup.
word rebuild. They say retool. right?
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Whatever you want to start it, rebuild, retool, revamp, renovate, is what the Bruins are doing. They're hitting a restart. They picked a direction at the trade deadline.
That's right.
They didn't get entirely younger, but they got quicker. And to your point, they have the pillars
And it's a
around.
big offseason for Don Sweeney.
Heck
Yes.
yeah.
It's a huge offseason.
Yeah.
Seventh
Right?
overall pick,
Yeah.
cap space,
Absolutely.
a lot
Yeah.
of draft capital.
New
Right.
head coach.
New head coach.
Right? It started there, all right? Now it's, a new head coach. Got the draft coming
That's
up.
right.
Got free agency coming. I mean, there is a lot
It's happening fast, too.
this offseason. It
Bees
is.
are back, baby! Woo! Toby, champagne! Come on!
We're still waiting on the bottle service.
God.
Adam, thanks for hopping on. Break glass in case of emergency. You're the man. Always
Hey, good to
being
see you
there.
guys.
Always good seeing you. Make
Oh,
sure to catch
yeah,
Adam
my man.
on Hockey Hub as well. We'll have full breakdown on Marco Sturm there. We'll take a break on Boston has entered the chat. When we're back, Andy Brickley will be joining
Yeah.
us
All right.
Rick.
on the Marco
Love it.
Sturm Hire. We'll take a quick break. We're back on Boston has entered the chat. We now have our guy, Andy Brickley, joining us. You always catch Andy Brick in the booth with Judd Surratt all season long with the Bruins. Brick, Marco Sturm, the next head coach for the Boston Bruins, officially announced. What do you think of Sturm being the next guy to lead this franchise?
Yeah, I've been waiting for the official announcement for the last several days. I know a number of outlets were reporting that this was a done deal, so I guess it was just a matter of time. I like the progression that he has gone through to be where he is today, meaning, he ran the German national program, and when you have success on the international stage, when you're really an underdog that Germany was going into the Olympics and the international stage best on best, to have that kind of success, I think speaks to his ability, not only X's and O's, but getting the buy-in from the players, and it's relatively a short tournament. So I think that's good news. And then I think to be an assistant coach at the National Hockey League level for several years, and then that progression to be a head coach in the American Hockey League for 3 or 4 more years, I think he's on the right track. And I think if we all remember Marco, when he played for the Bruins, quality guy, stand-up guy, played the game the right way, was a student of the game. So I think he checks a lot of boxes when you're talking about hiring the next Bruins head coach.
Brick, the first thing you said is how I felt. We've all been waiting for this to be officially announced.
Yeah.
What took so long? Not so much even the announcement, but just a process. Do you think it was just the Bruins doing their due diligence? Because I thought they would have named this a week or 2 ago, Brick.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I have to believe that that's what it was, that it was their due diligence and the process that they wanted to go through, and they wanted to make sure that they gave everybody that was a potential candidate, a fair shake at this thing. I immediately think about Joe Sacco, and I hope that they were really upfront with Joe that even if he was in the mix, if he's not going to be the next head coach, give him that opportunity, because there were a number of vacancies in the league. And if Joe was going to look to make a move, I hope he had that opportunity to interview for jobs that have now since been filled.
Right.
That being said, I do think it was just the process that the Bruins wanted to go through. I have to give them that much credit. This is a huge, I heard you guys talking earlier, this is a huge off season for the Bruins management team. They have to make the right decisions. They have to identify players across the league that they need to go either acquire through free agency or through trade. They got a hit on their draft pick. They got the 7th overall pick. You can't miss there. They do have a ton of draft capital, which puts them in the trade market if you want to trade for established players. So I think the most important thing, though, if I can expand on that just a little bit, they need young players to develop and become impactful NHL players on a nightly basis in order to round out this roster if they're going to be right back into that contending category.
Yeah, that's what points to what you say of the substantial experience he has, head coach of the Ontario Reign of the AHL. Brick, I want to ask you, as a guy that played 4 years in Boston and now lives here, you're part of the fabric of the sport here. You're an institution.
We love you, Brick. We love you.
That's a short way to put it. Marco Sturm played 5 seasons for the Bruins. How valuable is that experience of being a guy that played here, and not just to relate to the players, but also to be in that seat, in that offense, have that job leading the Boston Bruins?
Well, I think it's important, but I think it's more important the type of player that he was and how he dealt with the pressures of playing in Boston, the expectation, and to deal with the media. And I think he handled it extremely well when he was here as a player. They weren't the best of years when he first got here. Winning was tough to come by, but then they grew as a team. They grew as a group. They got back to what it meant to be a Boston Bruin, and I think Marco had a lot to do with that. in his own way. And I think that that he's a lifer when it comes to hockey, and I mean that in a very positive way. That's a compliment, because I think he loves the game, and I think for him to be back affiliated with the Boston Bruins, where he had some level of success. Of course, he came over in the Hughes Thornton trade, and you all have opinions on whether that was a good trade or not. But he was one of the assets that they got. I thought that was a valuable return, and I think his experience in Boston will certainly help him as he prepares to be the next head coach.
Brick, and hearing you talk about the offseason, it kind of made me think of, yes, the last few seasons around here have been disappointing. However, I mean, if I'm a free agent, I would love the idea of being a part of maybe like the new look Bruins. Is that fair to, I know there's still some stars here, but it's like, if I was a free agent, the history of this franchise, the opportunity that I have to come into sort of a new world here, I would love that in terms of, you know, the team pitching me. Do you think that's sort of an advantage? I know a lot of fans are down right now because of the disappointment, but at the same time, the future feels exciting to me, Brick, right?
For the last 20 years, the culture of the Boston Bruins has been the envy of the National Hockey League. Yeah. It's taken a hit. It's taken a hit over the last 12 months or so.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, it's a big offseason to reestablish what it means to be a Boston Bruin and to be in that room. But I think it is a destination city. It should be if you're a free agent. You want to come to an Original Six. You want to come to Boston. Hey, over the last decade that Donnie Sweeney's been the GM, they've done a lot of winning during the regular season.
Yeah.
You know, our disappointments have been the postseason when they've had very good hockey teams. And that's the hard part to handle, because you expected such deep playoff runs and didn't get them consistently enough. But if you wanted to be a National Hockey League player and play for Original Six team and wear the black and gold, man, how could you say no to that? You know, and the Bruins will spend. They'll spend to the cap. The problem is they need to identify the right players, the right types of players, in order to get this retool going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. And you point out the identity. And you point out how Marco Sturm was as a player. What do you think the identity of this team will be? They have the pillars, they have the vets, the guys that are here long term, and they have a lot of young guys as well that will be contributors at the NHL level.
You know, you look at guys like David Pastrnak and Charlie McAvoy and Jeremy Swayman, right? The three pillars that this team is going to be founded on, unless one of them gets moved in a deal. And you don't want to waste any of their career years on a 5-year plan. So if you're going to get this thing turned right around and get right back into the competitive balance of the National Hockey League and compete for a division championship and make the postseason, you know, when you identify those players got to want to come here and be part of the solution. You know, they went out and spent last year, and when anybody that signs on July 1st at noontime, they're going to get more years and more money than they deserve. Correct?
Right.
It's just the price of business. That's the way it gets done.
Yep.
And both those players that they signed, you know, Zadorov and Lindholm, they didn't live up to expectations, their own expectations.
That's
I
right.
expect them to be closer to what we expect this year, improvement, and be part of the solution. You know, we're talking about that culture. They need to be a big part of it. And anybody else that trade for or sign has to be part of that new culture, but with the same traits and the same, here's how we want to play the game. Here's how we operate our room. Here's how we make each other accountable. And I think once they have that and they rebuild that internal locker room and that togetherness and check your ego at the door, then they have an opportunity to do the right things.
Okay, we're all talking about culture, and I get it. Let's say they get that right, Brick. Let's spin this forward. What does it look like on the ice? Because I'm hearing brand, I'm hearing history. You know, all these things are important, culture. But I also need that sort of that old school brand, that Bruins brand, but also how hockey is played nowadays. What will that look like on the ice to you? What? Give me a vision of what you want this Bruins team to look like to compete for cups schematically as it comes to the team on the ice.
Here's what I believe. I believe in goaltending, team defense, and strength down the middle. I think those are three most important things of all championship teams. Mm-hmm. Then you start getting into your depth of your roster. But you need that strength down the middle, particularly the way the Bruins have always defended. You know, they don't play man-on-man. They play a hybrid in the defensive zone. They really rely on quality center play to help out their defense. You know, you could have two stud defensemen and four other guys, but if you have four strong centers, you're going to defend really, really well.
Okay.
Those centers will help out the D. You'll You'll deny. You'll own the middle of the ice. You'll get quick, exits out of the defensive zone. All the stuff that wasn't there consistently enough last year for Boston. So I need that strong center ice play. Now, when you look at the center position, I brought up Lindholm. He needs to be the player that they expected him to be. And where do you go from there? Is Middlestat going to be one of your four centermen? Is Fraser Minten going to be a guy that's going to be a regular? We talked about young guys having to pop a little bit and become solid NHL players. Who's going to play with David Pastrnak in the middle? You need to have that strong center ice play. And, of course, you need your top two defensemen to be healthy and productive players. I need McAvoy to mature into the leader that he should be, that he hasn't become yet. I need Lindholm to be healthy and be that, that second layer of great defense that you have. I'd like the Bruins to go out and get a top guy. Zadorov wants to be that guy. I'll put him in my top four, but I'm looking for a big three. I think the trade of Carlo hurt Boston in that regard because they didn't have enough depth on the blue line.
Right.
But they do need center ice play, and they need to add to their top six, okay? And I don't like using that word phrase bottom six. You think about 2019, right? And you had Charlie Coyle. He was your third-line center. Is he a bottom six player? No. Because he's a primary penalty killer. He's on your second power play. Don't call it a bottom six forward when he's one of your most important players. So I don't like to use that term, but they need to get more talent in their top six if this is going to be a team that we want the Bruins to be.
Yeah, now as you see as the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs are laying out, it's now about top nines, to your point.
Yeah, it is.
It's not about top six, bottom six. It's who is top nine. Who is deep.
You're right.
And to your point, Brick, I'm not going to put this pressure on him, but we'll see what Sturm can get out of a Mason Larive, a guy that shows flashes, make it consistent. Matty Patra, we saw the flash, got injured. Can he make a step forward? And we'll see what they do with the 7th overall pick, what the age will be, what the timeline look like for him to get to the level. But that's where Sturm has a playing experience to relate to their stars and has the AHL experience to know how to talk to, relate, communicate, and get the most out of these young guys, Brick.
Yeah, and the thing that ties into that, to your point, and you're spot on, you need the culture. Those young players need the culture to learn from and to feed off. If you don't have that, young players are going to drift. They're going to do it their way. They're going to take shortcuts, and you can't allow that to happen. So that's why the culture has to be in place for these young kids to come in and be impactful guys.
Brick, as we're waiting and waiting and waiting to see who this next coach was going to be, Georgia and I kept talking about, well, the damn draft feels like it's 5 minutes away. I know it's a few weeks away. Now that we know, do you think this changes the way they're going to draft? Like, what's your gut on what they're going to take at number 7 overall, Brick? Oh, did he freeze? He's still a handsome man, even when he's frozen.
Look at that. Your question was so good.
Yeah.
Your question was so good.
Mind-boggling.
Shout out to Andy Brickley for coming on.
That was a great question, too.
That
You got to give me that.
Fantastic question. Ask it back to me. So,
do you believe now that the Bruins have a head coach in place? What do you think the draft strategy is?
I mean, for them, it's still to get better down the middle.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to, we're doing...
I think Brick was going to say that because he talked about that.
Well, you look at the number 1 overall prospect is a can't-miss defenseman, Schaefer. And yes, there's a James Hagens out there that the Bruins would love to get. And I'm not saying just because he wears a BC sweater.
Sure.
But there's a lot of center depth in this draft.
There is.
Guys that are good 200-foot centers, maybe a little smaller, but good offensive and quick.
Yeah.
Have high IQ. There are guys that you see the framework that can contribute at the NHL level. And I think that's what's most important for the Bruins. At the 7th overall pick, you wanted to see top 5, bare minimum. They got a bad pull by falling to 7 in that lottery, which you needed an MIT degree to break down.
Facts.
But at 7, they can still get an impact center. And again, that adds to top 9. Need a good top 9, need to be good down the middle.
Brick's list. I asked him point blank, how do you get back to winning cups? How would you like to see the Bruins sort of retool this? He said, in order, goaltending, defense, strength down the middle.
Yeah, and that's what matters. And think about it, goaltending, Jeremy Swayman. Now, do him and Korpisalo make a better core together where you don't have to push as much, and then that gives Swayman enough rest in a way that he can still be that effective guy and who we've saw him be. But then you go on the opposite end when he talks about decor, Charlie McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm. McAvoy has to be a leader, and that goes into, the culture. Because if you don't have leaders and you don't have culture, these young guys learning how to play at the NHL level, it could be a lot. Charlie McAvoy needs to be a leader. And then down the middle, it's a Casey Middlestat, it's a Pavel Zacha, it's an Elias Lindholm, who ends up being a wing, who ends up being a center, and who ends up contributing and being successful playing next to a David Pastrnak.
No doubt. We should have been prepared for this moment. We should have had some confetti dropping from the sky. I'm still waiting on Toby to bring some champagne out here. Like, we need to celebrate. I am so happy that this is over and the Bruins have named the coach. And by the way, it's a guy that we thought all along, too. Credit to you. You've been all over. Brick's back. Is Brick back?
We're hearing that Brick is back.
Yeah! Yeah, Brick! All right, let's
Sorry
go
about
back.
that, fella.
Yeah, let's go back like it never happened. Brick, I was asking you this. Now that we know Sturm's in place here, does it change the draft strategy at all at number 7, or do you think they already have a plan in place? What are you thinking for the draft, Brick?
Well, I think Marco Sturm will have a voice in terms of what he would desire when it comes to drafting players, but he's a coach, and you have your draft team in place, and I think they have a game plan. They know, they've identified, they've interviewed. I don't think the addition of Marco Sturm is going to change the direction where the Bruins were going with pick number 7.
Okay.
All right, he's Andy Brickley. Brick, appreciate you taking the time. Enjoy your time. We're excited to see what Marco Sturm does with the Bruins. As always, catch Brick, you know, during games and Judd in the booth, but also catch him on the Hockey Hub all the time. Brick, thanks for taking the time, my friend.
Yeah, good to talk to you guys. Thanks.
That wraps it up for us here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. Make sure to stay locked into NESN all day long with the latest updates on Marco Sturm. Check out the Hockey Hub on NESN Nation as well. Adam Pellerin will be on that. More on Marco Sturm, the next Bruins head coach. George Balekji, Travis Thomas. He's Andy Brickley. Brick, again, thanks for waking up with us. We'll see you guys same time, same place tomorrow.